I was doing a musical on Broadway called The Addams Family, which was reviled by the critics. I mean, reviled. Jackie Hoffman, who was in it, said, Jesus, even gay men don't like this fucking music. But it didn't seem to matter to the public because they just wanted to see those characters they wanted, and they liked, and it was the notion of all of us in it, and it succeeded in spite of what had been said about it. But it gave me some time to think. At the same time, Charles Isherwood, who was then a critic at the New York Times, wrote this a lovely piece about me, a kind of a career assessment. I guess he felt sorry for me being trapped in the Addams Family. And he wrote this lovely piece about my career. And he said, I was like I was the greatest stage entertainer of the last decade. And as flattering as this piece was, I can find the dark cloud in any silver lining. And the word entertainer sort of irked me. And I thought, is that how I'm seen at that point? I don't know how long I've been an actor, 35 years or so at that point. And I was like, I'm an actor. I'm not an entertainer. And I thought, I need to do something. I need to shake things up. I need to challenge myself. I need to challenge the audience, because I think I have more to offer as an actor. And I wonder if I can do that. I wonder if it's even possible to shift people's perception. Because, people like to categorize you. They like to put you in a box, and you don't come out of that box. Just stay in the box and do what we like you to do. And so I thought, how do I do that? And then I had read this interview in Variety with Bob Falls, the director, and he was the artistic director of the Goodman Theater in Chicago, and Brian Dennehy, and they had a long artistic relationship and did many plays in Chicago and some of them came to New York, like Death of a Salesman and Long Day's Journey. And Brian Dennehy was a very old friend of mine of 30 years. We had known each other. And they were talking about revisiting The Iceman Cometh. Brian had done it in 1990 in Chicago, and it was a huge success. I'm surprised it didn't come into New York. But they were talking about revisiting it and Brian taking on the role of Larry Slade, and who could play Hickey. And so I don't know why, I just said, that's it. That's what I need to do, something like that. That would certainly shake things up. So I wrote Bob Falls, and I explained, I'd read this article, and I said, I'd like to put myself forward if you do Iceman, and here's why, here's my concept for it, and he wrote me back and said, we were just talking off the top of our heads. There is no production planned, but he said, if you would like to do it, let's get together and discuss it. And so eventually I did. I went to Chicago. I wanted to do it in Chicago. And who had the rights? Scott Rudin. And then he wasn't going to give them to the Goodman Theater. Yeah. So I had to, it's his favorite pastime. So I had to call him and say, please, I just want to do, I'm not looking, this isn't a pre-Broadway tryout. I just want to do this play, and I want to do it in Chicago. And I want to do it with Dennehy and Bob Falls. And so he said, okay. And that really was a life-changing experience, because of the demands of that piece are just extraordinary. And it's as Dennehy said, well, other than Lear, you only picked the most difficult role ever written. He was Brian was just, he's someone else. Fuck, this is what happens when you get old.
you just
Someone get this man a tissue.
you just start crying a lot. Anyway, he was such a mentor and champion of mine. Doing that part and doing it together, doing it with him was so important to me and Bob. And then, and eventually we did it at the Brooklyn Academy, and it was, that thing with, it's O'Neill. I highly recommend O'Neill if you want to shake things up, because, nobody writes like that anymore. And the kind of, I can remember reading in this interview with Colleen Dewhurst where she had started to do O'Neill, and she said, "Oh, it's ridiculous." In one paragraph, it's just, how do you do this stuff? And it is. He's asking you to go as far as he's going in the writing, and to jump off this cliff with him, and you've got to surrender to it. And if you do, that's when it works. Giving yourself over to it, because he's Iceman. He's asking you to go to the darkest places in your soul and the places you didn't even know existed. And so it is once you've been through it, it changes everything. It changed certainly for me how I work, how I approach things. It changed everything.